All right, guys, this week on the True North Racing Podcast, we have Joey Herremans on with us. Joey, how are you?
Oh, not too bad. How's yourself, John?
I'm doing well, thank you. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Happy
Um,
New Year, Merry Christmas to yourself as well.
uh, how's your, I don't know how much racing you got done last year, but how's your off season going?
Quiet. We only got out a couple times last year. At the start of it, it was a cost thing.
Yeah.
For just me and my dad to go, it didn't quite make sense. Normally it would cost us $60 to enter the gate, and they were charging, I think, $250.
Yep.
On top of $150 that we for tow money that we would. So it ended up being like, instead of like a $300 night, like a $500 night. So we had to kind of plan out when we could, just to, we're just grassroots racers. So it's not like we're made of money,
Yeah, exactly. So just for the people who don't know, what exactly do you race?
It is a Northeast Dirt Car Sportsman modified. It's a tongue twister, but essentially the same big block modifieds that got put into iRacing. For maybe some guys that don't know the dirt side too much, but know iRacing, they'll give them something to kind of gauge it against.
Yep.
It's modified. It's the same as those, but with a 602 crate motor in it. Then that's what they call the sportsman class.
Okay. What kind of tires do you run on those?
We got the treaded Hoosiers.
Okay.
But we end up, by the time you get a treaded tire, and by the time you're done with it, you've shredded it down to damn near nothing. By the time you groove it, sipe it, and then you get doing that for multiple weeks and different tracks, and it's tire prep's a heavily involved game in these cars.
Yeah, for sure. Whereabouts do you race those cars?
So right now I mainly run Merrittville, which is up by St. Catharines, Thorold. About 15 minutes from Merrittville is Humberstone Speedway. I know the G-Force guys actually, I think they kicked off their season there.
Yep.
If anyone got to watching that stuff, that would be Humberstone. And then we also race at Oswego, but once or twice a year. And that's actually my favorite track. The track's so wide. It seems, when you're looking at it on the ground level, small compared to Merrittville, but when you get out there, it actually feels way bigger compared to Merrittville or Humberstone.
Oh, wow.
And Glenn puts on a top, like, he gives us a great service every night we get out there.
I've only made it to Oswego, and I haven't made it to Merrittville or Humberstone, but I have driven by them enough, but haven't been able to stop in and actually catch a race. I'm hoping to this year. I'm hoping to travel a little bit more to each track here in Ontario. So hopefully you're racing one night that I get to go out there and check out those tracks. I really want to. I watched them on G-Force, and I learned something about. I kind of watched them, and I was like, man, those look like cool tracks. I want to hit them up. So, yeah, I wish I could give a comparison, but I can't. So.
It's Merrittville. If I were to make a comparison, Merrittville is a very, I want to say, low speed, but not low speed what you would think. It's a lot more. It slicks off a lot quicker.
Yep.
And you spend a lot more time kind of doing a 2-foot dance. So that's why I'm kind of saying lower speed is where Oswego you can really toss it in a lot harder, because the corners are a lot more gradual, a lot more wider. So two completely different tracks, but they're funner than heck to race at.
Yeah, I can imagine. So we're going to jump back here. How long have you been racing?
This would be going on to my 16th season, I think, in total.
And what was your first car that you raced?
My first car was a junior micro sprint. If anyone from the London area listens to this, you would get, they used to race them out at Wilton Grove Speedway, and then Fisher Farms were the two tracks for them. So They were kind of our local go-kart scene.
Yeah. And then when did you start moving up in your levels?
The very end of that summer, because I outgrew the car. I went from being like 4 foot nothing, and I sprouted out like a half a foot.
Oh, wow.
And my suit didn't fit me. My helmet didn't fit me. I'll actually, I'll take a picture. I got a picture I'm looking at right now of the last time I ran the car, and it actually, my suit does not fit. Like, I don't know if my suit would have been legal for that race, because I mean, it was the tightest of ever. I never wanted to suit that tight ever again.
Oh boy.
I hit the growth spurt in the wrong time. It could have came a couple months later after the race season.
Yeah, for sure.
We actually took a year off after that, and then went into the 440 micro sprints after that.
Okay. What all cars have you raced to get before you got up to the modified?
So I basically stuck to the local London area scene. So like I said, the junior micro sprints is where I started. I actually raced those up at Oswego, because the tracks around here shut down, and the guys that were running around here talked to Glenn, and we were racing on their warm-up tracks. So the back track at Oswego was actually kind of our track on, I think it was Saturdays at like 1 o'clock start. So I did that for a year. Didn't quite fit the car no more, but I was too young to really move up and race the next class.
Yeah.
So I had to go up to I didn't know it at the time. But I moved up to the 440s, not knowing that Grand Bend had a 9-horse sprint and a class for the junior micro sprints, and not knowing I could have went that asphalt route quite at that time. I didn't figure that out till actually the first year I ran the 440. So I went from starting on dirt, jumped over to the 440 micro sprint, which is a non-suspended car. Anyone ever watched the Hurricane midgets back in the day?
Yeah.
Something along those, basically those, but not quite as long. Like if you were to chop maybe like a half a foot out of the cage, and shrink them up, it would be a lot closer as far as wheelbase went.
Okay.
But same motors. I mean, they used a lot of Polaris. I started with a Polaris motor on our car. Switched over to Rotex after a couple years. That's what I really liked about the 440s, actually, is we had some options. You could run a sled clutch or centrifugal clutch. You could run Suzuki, Bombardier, Rotex, Polaris, Yamaha. There was a couple really old makes that were out, but that class was an awesome class. I mean, I ran in that car for 2 years, just that car itself. Then we bought a Hurricane midget off of Dave Insel and had Gary Brooks help us put the suspension on it. And so we basically if you were to think of the Oscar Pro midgets now.
Yep.
The second 440 I bought was the exact same thing as an Oscar Pro midget, or at least what the Oscar Pro midgets were when they first came on the scene.
Okay.
So if that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what you're looking at there. So
Okay.
I took my flat bottom car, took it to Wonderland Speedway, which is just outside London by the 400 series highway there.
Okay.
And
by the 402 there?
Yeah, I think it's the 402. Yeah, it would
One
be
that
the
goes
402.
north of Sarnia, right?
Yeah, I think it's the 4, because it's Lambeth has the 401 and the 402, and I always get them screwed up.
Yeah.
But I think it's like you could basically see the track from the overpass from the intersection. Pardon?
On Wonderland?
Just about, yeah.
Okay.
Like the way you come from the back way, if you're coming up, we came up Longwoods Road and then would take a right down Wonderland Road, and then that would bring you right along the back of the track.
Okay.
And you could see pretty well the tops of people's trailers at the gate from just before Wonderland Road on Longwoods.
Okay.
So it was, and I mean, that track had been there by the time it closed, from what I was told, 35, almost 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, when I say Field of Dreams, I mean like it was the Field of Dreams. It was like you pull in. Some summers you'd pull in and it was nothing but cornfield around.
Yeah.
So you'd be pulling it into this. You wouldn't even think there was a racetrack there. And as you pulled back, you would see the track open up. And you could just see the cornfield everywhere. So
Yeah.
it reminded me of the movie Field of Dreams growing up.
I can just imagine that. I had to take my sister to a soccer game one time when she was playing rep soccer, and the same kind of deal. We pulled up to this middle of nowhere soccer field. We were like, "Where's this soccer field?" Turns out it was in the middle of a cornfield. So I kind of understand that. I just imagine that view just pulling in. It's like, where are we going? And like the first time going there, like, where the heck is this thing? And then you just like open up. It's like, it's like The Shining.
Yeah, for sure. So I raced there on Fridays for the better half of my career by this point.
Okay.
Probably about 11 years I raced, 10, 11 years I raced there. So I'd race there on Fridays, originally with the non-suspended car.
Yep.
And I would race Grand Bend Speedway with the new suspended car on Saturdays. And then when they did double show, because sometimes they would have a Saturday, Sunday show.
Yep.
I'd be racing dirt on Friday, jump in the asphalt car Saturday, jump back in the asphalt car Sunday, go back to school on Monday, do it all over again that week. So
I was about to say, that sounds like a perfect weekend right there.
It taught you dedication. I mean,
Yeah,
there was times where something went wrong on Saturday. You'd pull the car out of the trailer at like 7 o'clock in the morning in the campground, start working on it right in the campground until they would open the gates back up so you could get in the gates and get everything finished up for the day.
Yeah,
But I mean, I wouldn't, for that be my childhood, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, I can only imagine that. So once you were done with the asphalt car and the 440, what did you move up to?
So once I finished on the asphalt scene, was actually probably 2 or 3 years before I moved up to a full-size car.
Okay.
What we did was we took our asphalt suspended car, brought it over to the dirt track, and raced in what they called the outlaw class.
Okay.
Because the outlaw class had suspension, the micro class had no suspension.
Okay.
And there was a couple different reasons why we did that. Part of it was the new 450 motor program that was coming in at Grand Bend for those cars. They were using a 450 4-stroke dirt bike motor with full transmission.
Okay.
And for a guy like us that ran centrifugal clutch, there was no way we were going to keep up on the starts.
Yeah.
Because they could start in like first gear, but I would have to like idle so low that it actually wouldn't engage the clutch, or it'd heat the clutch up.
Yeah.
And basically roast the clutch out of it. So we moved over to the dirt side and started playing around on the dirt. And after a few years of doing that is when I moved up into the car I race now, actually, the Sportsman Modified. So this would be my 5th year going into that.
Okay. And what have you noticed about that class since from when you started to now?
What I've learned is it almost never stops, but the biggest thing I've learned is patience.
Yeah.
And the little cars on the small tracks, when guys got messing up, you could take advantage of it really easily. These cars sometimes can be somewhat forgiving when you do bobble a little bit through the corner. So guys are able to actually catch it a little easier and stay on the power. Or there's a couple different things you can do to kind of, when you're getting out of control, to get it back in control real quick.
Yep.
Especially on when the track gets real slick. So that would almost be number 2, is learning how to read the dirt. I mean, the start of the night, I think we were 7.5 inches of stagger. By the time we go into the feature, we're down to like 6 inches.
Oh wow.
And we've done 3 or 4 turns. Like it got to one point in our 3rd or 4th year. Our changeover from heat race to feature would take us like a half hour.
Oh wow.
Because it was, turn here, turn there, switch out this tire, make a few more changes, put gas in the car, exactly how much gas we want in the car. But that's all part of racing, and that's what makes it fun, especially for someone like myself and my dad that do it. When we do run good, we know we did it on our own and no one did it for us kind of deal.
Yeah. So
Those
how
would
many?
really be the
Sorry, go ahead.
those would really be the two biggest things I've learned is just patience and how to read dirt.
Yeah. So kind of going with with that, and then kind of curious, how many features have you won in your 5 years of being in the modified?
So I got the rookie feature. That was in my first year. They had a rookie class. So
Okay.
as long as you hadn't won in the main sportsman class, you were allowed to run this rookie class. So we had a couple guys that would pop down once in a while. Like if they had a bad wreck the week before and they wanted to shake down their car, they would pop down to the novice class for a week, just make sure their car was in good working order. Then they'd go back racing with the full class.
Okay.
So I won that actually my second or third time out in that car, and actually led from basically green to checkered on that one.
Oh, gotta love those ones.
I can actually send you a link to it. It's on my YouTube channel, so I'll send you a link to it, John, if you want to take a look at it.
Yeah, for sure.
So that would have been my rookie year, and since then we were making some gains. Second or third year.
Yep.
Our third year, we had a really bad crash and basically twisted the rear end like a pretzel.
Oh wow.
Like I got just going in underneath the guy. I kind of misjudged how much speed I had going in, and got it sideways. And the guy behind me, I don't think he expected me to get it sideways.
Yeah.
So he wasn't lifting, and when he came around, he hit dead square on the left rear tire. Accordioned the rim. Didn't break the rim, just accordioned the rim.
Yeah.
Busted the bottom frame rail that runs underneath the axle and actually twisted the back part of the frame.
Oh wow.
So we got rid of that car. But by that point, that year we had some real bad luck, but it looked like we were going to be strong. We came out of the box feeling confident because our second year we actually won our last two heat races that we raced.
Yeah.
Against some it's on a tacky track, so it's a little easier for guys like me to keep up with the top guys.
Yep.
But I was still pretty dang proud of myself to, by the end of our second year, have a novice feature win, contend for a couple more novice features, and then go up into the big class and win a couple of heat races, challenge around the top. We were about a top 10 to 15 car.
Yep.
Most nights. So we were starting to make the strides in the right direction. And then our third year seemed to just be nothing but bad luck, and not much you can do about that.
Yeah. And then kind of year 4, how was that?
Year 4 that would be last year. It was not the year we were looking for. We chased the car. Couldn't get it to, be. If we did get it to be loose, we had to loosen it off so much that it was way too loose.
Yeah.
And when we tried to tighten it up, it's almost like you adjusted a little bit tight was almost times 10.
Yeah.
And so we could never quite get it where we wanted. And then we fell back to, I'd say, 15th to 20th place car.
Okay.
So we were definitely losing ground to where we were, the year before that.
Yeah.
And the difference, I think, is we changed the third year we had to actually change our chassis.
Yep.
So we went from a 08-07, which really isn't a big deal, but we went from a standard floor to a rubber floor car, and the rubber floor car is naturally tighter, and we just didn't tighten it up, I guess, enough with some of the other parts and pieces you can buy.
Okay.
That's one thing about these cars another thing I've learned is you kind of have to, you don't want to go out and buy the best of everything because it's not always going to necessarily work with what you got.
Yeah.
Like I know a friend of mine, I got it. So what I have is considered, I think, a Gen 2 rubber floor, and he has a Gen 1 rubber floor. And what he went out and bought a bunch of really good parts for his car, and it almost like he didn't go forwards. But when he started taking off some of those higher parts and putting back on some of the more stock stuff,
Yeah.
he started being fast again. So it was these cars just based off the type of chassis and the options you can get with the chassis. You almost have to decide on what route you want to go for all your little parts and pieces to go along with it.
Yeah. That's definitely with most cars, though. You kind of have to figure out what works best for that car, no matter what.
Yeah.
It could be the exact same car, but like you put all the things into a new car, it's set up exactly the same way. But guess what? It's going to act differently than that other car did.
100%. And
Right. So
that's
it's got to
something
find
coming
out.
up.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's something coming up in the 440 regs I never had to really experience, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was when I got in, switching. That's where that happened. And I was like, whoa, okay, yep, nope, we gotta go back on our game plan a little here.
That I always love those nights though when you're just trying to figure out what works best for the car, because you're putting out the best product you can on that track, even if it's not the top end, not the most expensive parts either.
100% for sure. But they're the nights that make you pull your hair out. But at the end of the night, you learn the most.
Yeah.
Because you can always find that little something, that although we were going this way with it, when we did this with the stagger, it felt a little better. Or, you know what? I think if we did this with the shock, instead of going up on a couple turns, going down on a couple turns, or little things like that, you can almost find the little silver linings that will make you quicker in the end game.
Yeah, for sure. And then kind of you talked a little bit about this year, understanding with COVID and all that. On average, how many cars do you guys typically get on a race night?
This year, I think we had a full field every night. So that would be 26 cars, I think they take.
Okay.
It can be anywhere because you got to think there's also Ransomville, Fulton. I know there's a couple more missing. Just on the other side of the border in New York.
Yep.
So that's kind of with Bicknell's Racing Products being right there, which is a big chassis builder, and a couple of the engine builders being right local to that area. That's kind of a hot spot for these cars.
Yep.
So we get anywhere between 20 to 26 cars every night.
Oh, wow.
And then, there's been nights where I've showed up. We've had 30, 32 on the nights where Humberstone isn't racing on a Sunday, or Ransomville got rained out the night before. So we get pretty strong car counts. I think to get 20 cars, I think any class right now, you got to be pretty happy. Yeah,
for sure. And the only classes that are really doing that are the mini stocks, the pure stocks, or any division that of a low cost to get in, right?
A little more affordable. And
yeah, exactly.
You don't got to spend so much time on the car.
That too.
I got a couple guys that race in the mini stocks and asphalt bone stocks. And for them, I'll be talking to them, and they'll do maybe a night or two of maintenance.
Yeah.
And they got the rest of the week to spend with their family and do whatever they want and have some fun. But there's nights where me and Dad get into the shop on Sunday, and it feels like I don't come out till race day on next Saturday. With these bigger cars, it's just so much more involved that you got to do with them every week.
Yeah, for sure.
But that goes along with your thought of it gives people that entry level class that gives people that chance to learn all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere, and if we're giving guys a class like a 4-cylinder that they can learn how to work on them and how to drive and stuff like that, I don't mind. It's good to see them having strong fields because it means there's interest in racing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I just kind of wish it would help kind of trickle up the ladder too, to help have an even growing pattern across all classes.
Yeah, we might have to work on the old Canadian government to lower our taxes for that to happen.
Yeah, you may have to do that as well. So kind of going forward, we're going to jump into a quick, I did receive one question today. Our question comes from, actually, just trying to think here. Our two guests prior to you. So he's actually going to be our third guest coming up here soon. His name is Jonathan Vey. Jonathan Vey.
Yeah, he's the mini stock driver. a
Pure
couple weeks ago.
stock.
Okay.
Pure stock guy. He asked, what are your goals for 2021?
To be honest, for 2021, I would just like to get back going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Like I said, we got out a couple times in 2020. We went out for a practice day, and the car felt great. But then when we got out for race day, it still wasn't bad. We were running about 17th, and it was going to be probably our only start of the year.
Yeah.
So I was fighting with guys, but when you know you're only just trying to get the car home one piece, it's hard to figure out what you got and where you're going.
Yeah.
But B, you don't want to get jockeying with guys a little too hard.
Yeah.
So I was happy to see we were running about 17th this year, probably a 17th to 20th place car again.
Yeah.
But my goal, to be honest, would just be to start making those steps back forward and get back to, 15th, even to be 14th, 13th I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah.
If I could if I could win a heat race, that'd make my entire year, to be honest. Just because we've had a couple rough years, and it's always nice to finally see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. So kind of going with your goals towards 2021, what are you doing in the off season to prepare yourself to get yourself up into a top 10 position or competing for heat wins?
That would be really the tough. For us, it's a little tough to really know where we're at.
Yeah.
With only getting out once, we don't know. We have some ideas of what we would like to change. Just a couple of small suspension changes. That's what's happened is the driver decided to go and hit the Jenny Craig program and lose 70, 80 pounds. So, and I've been bugging my dad, maybe we need to start, looking at the suspension, because we did lose quite a bit of weight out of the middle of the car.
Yeah.
So we've been mulling some stuff back and forth, just trying to figure out where we want to go with that. Because like I said, we only got out once, so we think we know which way we want to go with it, but that's only that one track state. You get into a slick track. What's a slick track compared to a rubber dirt track? It's so much slicker than actual what you would think of a slick track would be. So we don't have a whole lot planned, just because we didn't get a whole lot of time to really know where we were at.
Yeah.
So it'll be one of the off seasons where we kind of do the least, but I think by doing that we can still go forward. Do I think top 10? Probably not. But would I like to start challenging even for top 15? Would be great, because I think we're getting the car to go in that direction. It's hard to be confident after just getting out for one night last year.
Yeah. It's now call me whatever you want to here, just because I'm more of an asphalt. I deal with a lot more asphalt stuff compared to dirt stuff. I'm still learning. I've always been fascinated by dirt, but have just never really gotten into it. So if I'm ignorant here, just tell me. So asphalt, we typically have our practice days at the beginning of the year, but we also have practice days. Flamber runs a practice day on Tuesdays, typically, from the afternoon to dusk. Does the dirt side have anything like that? Or is it just more difficult because they do so much, it's a lot more track prep?
I think it kind of, I know Humberstone has done it in the past. Merrittville's tried it out. I don't think it catches on quite as much because of the track prep.
Yeah.
That goes on. I mean, they'll start, if we race on Saturday, they'll start on Monday.
Yeah.
And work the track until we get there on Saturday. So if you start all of a sudden in the middle of the week, start tearing it up again, it just makes it a little bit more difficult for the track to give us a surface that's, good to race on.
Okay.
So it doesn't happen quite as much, but we do generally get a couple practice days at the start of the year. Each track will do a practice day or 2 practice days.
Yeah.
So I'll find out what we got then. But yeah, when they were doing them, they would have them on a Wednesday or a Tuesday.
Okay.
So for us to drive up, because we're London to St. Catharines, so about 3 hours.
Yeah.
If not just a little bit more than that. Get off work at 5, get home by 6. By the time you get up there, they're already done.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So no, that's the reason why I was asking is because typically, like, I've been to Tuesday night. Like I used to work down by Flamborough, so it would be nothing for my buddy to make sure all his stuff was loaded up and meet me at the track because I'm 5 minutes away. So me and him were meeting at the same time, and we'd be able to get a couple hours of practice in. But I guess if you're coming from London, that makes it a lot more difficult when the only track you really have out there as well is Southern Ontario Motor Speedway.
Yeah, and I haven't heard of anything as far as us, the Northeast Modifieds going there.
Yeah.
But I mean, partly why I like this class so much is it gives me options. Like I can go to Brighton, Cornwall, Oswego, Humberstone, Southern Ontario.
Yeah.
I can go to some different tracks. So if they were to, pop up a race for us in the middle of the year, there might be a chance to see me end up there. It's a little closer. And I've never been before, so that's the cool thing.
Yeah. So kind of growing up in, I guess you been like born and raised in London area?
Yep, definitely born right in middle of London, and about 16 we moved outside of London. Only about 20 minutes. It's like just past Ilderton. So
okay.
You can still basically, if you're Uncle Rico, you could throw the football and still hit London.
Gotcha.
But so I still consider myself from London.
Yeah.
Because give us a couple of years in London, I'm sure London will just engulf us.
Yeah, that's typical nowadays. The cities just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and swallowing up all these little small areas.
Urban sprawl. That's what
exactly.
they call it.
So growing up, what kind of tracks is obviously being in racing? What other tracks, non-racing, like when you didn't race, what tracks would you end up going to watch a race?
This is gonna throw you off because being from London, you would expect me to say Delaware.
I mean, you're not wrong.
But I spent a lot of my time growing up at, Grand Bend Speedway.
Yep.
And not the micro sprint track, but the drag track.
Okay.
And before I was racing, my dad did mud drag racing.
Okay.
So my dad has always been, gearhead into cars. So we'd go once or twice a year. We'd go up to Grand Bend, check out some drag races. But then we would go to my dad's races.
Yeah.
And
you said
nothing that turned left at all.
I'm making sure I heard this right. You said that he was mud drag racing?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure I heard that correct. First off, I had no clue that was actually a thing in Ontario. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I've only watched it on the Lucas Oil program that they had on Speed Network, the Lucas Oil On the Edge. That's the only time I've ever seen it, and I never knew they had this in Ontario. If I knew there was this, I'd be going there.
They don't do it anymore.
And that's bad.
Yeah, well, it is. Yeah, it is.
It isn't. Yeah.
We met. There's a lot of people that I'm sure my dad wishes he got to see more because we only got to see him when we raced with him, kind of deal. You know what I mean? Like the racetrack buddies. But yeah, me and Kincardine, Dungannon, Milverton, Janetsville, Collingwood. We were all over Ontario, but there was a race once a month.
Yeah.
And what my dad had was basically a K10 or 88 Blazer, so a K10 I think it is, Blazer.
Yeah.
Lifted up on 35-inch tires with a 468 Chev motor in it that probably costs him $20,000 every year to rebuild.
Man. Yeah.
And that was just the mild class. There was guys that had, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but the Lucas Oil one you're talking about, they had that horseshoe, right?
No, it was straight up drag racing.
Was this just the straight?
But it was more or less like a top fuel car.
Yeah, and we had those here where it was like the car was maybe 7 foot long, and it would have like an old Willys body on it, or like if you were to look at if you were to take like an altered dragster.
Yeah.
That's what these cars looked like, but they had like 680 cubic inch and 2 kits of nitrous.
Oh my God. See, now I wish I knew that these things were going on, because that is something that intrigued me, and I've always wanted to see live. I love tractor pulls, and that's about the closest thing to a drag race I've actually gotten to see, because they don't turn left; they just go straight in a straight line.
Yeah.
But still, like, to me, that is just a fascinating sport to begin with. So I wanted to clarify on that. That's what I heard, because you piqued my interest when I heard that.
No, I think my dad has more trophies than I do, so I gotta start winning here soon. But yeah, we did that until I started racing. I think my first time in my dad's truck was at Granton, and I could be wrong, but that could be the day he went 5 seconds in his truck.
Oh wow!
Full size Chev Blazer, not like it was stripped down. There was like no interior except for just 2 plastic bucket seats. So there was basically no interior, but it was still an all metal. Like the truck was still all metal.
Yeah.
Like you could put a magnet on it and it would stick. But it was Granton always had a very shallow pit. So the object was this like skipping a rock across the top.
Yep.
And that too got, much like every other racing, that too got to the point where it was you're spending ridiculous amounts of money just to be competitive.
You spend a lot to win a little.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I got in an argument with my dad about this about a couple months ago, but I seem to remember one year at Milverton we won like $1,000.
Yeah,
and that was considered like the big payout. Like that was considered like the biggest payout of the year. It was like $1,000,
wow.
Which because we only raced once a month, it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But for the guys that had like, the mud rails, or there was a couple guys that had basically monster trucks.
Yeah.
That they just stripped down bare. The $1,000 wasn't even scratching their ticket for the weekend.
Yeah.
But for someone like my parents, where actually there's another picture in this house here. We pulled with an 80s Blazer on an open trailer with the race truck behind us. So you had what would be an absolute dream now, which is a square body Blazer. We had 2 of them.
Yeah.
One of them was our tow rig. But there's a picture of me sleeping with a trophy. On one side of it's all our, our tent, our clothes. Like the other side of it was, our food, our water. Like we looked like the Clampets going from race to race. Real. It was rednecking at its finest, is what I'll say.
Yeah. Oh man. But you know what though? Growing up, going to tracks and stuff, and doing what you were doing, to a lot of kids, like that's a dream. To be even a part of what your parents were doing, right?
For sure. It's I couldn't agree with you more there. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah.
There's some good stories that still come up to this day. Anytime one of my dad's buddies, a couple of them are around, that he raced with, there's a few stories that come up of, me as a kid, or, something me and one of his buddies' kids did that got us in trouble, or just stupid stuff like that as a kid you don't realize until later in life that it's like, man, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We kind of went off topic there with the whole mud drag racing thing. I just had to make sure I heard exactly what I heard, because that is, like I said, that was the best thing ever. That's the most redneck thing I could hear. Man. Absolutely, please do. I would love to see that.
I got a few of them. I'm just down in the basement right now, and I'm actually looking at the front of the Kincardine News. And there's a couple pictures. So I'll send you one of the monster trucks, so like one of the higher classes. And then the other one was when my dad actually flipped his truck. 3rd pass of the year. On I think it was like the first day. So you had 2 days.
Yeah.
But it was like the 3rd pass on the truck, and he flipped it because they had a wall in between them. Because if you didn't, you couldn't see where you were going.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll send you that picture, and I got a couple more down here. And actually, there's a couple on Facebook I can send over to you too of some of the older trucks, and just it was, just out like it was again the field of dreams, man. Like you would go, you never would have known Milverton was there because it was in behind their ball. They had a sports complex.
Okay.
And the pit, you had to go around the batting cages.
Yep.
To get into the staging lane, and the pit, there was like they put up a big wall behind the grandstand, so when mud came flying off the trucks, it wasn't getting onto their sports facilities and the pool that was right there.
I mean, that's a smart idea, but yeah.
I remember towing back into King Carden. Yeah, it was basically a logging trail to get back there. It seemed like as a kid.
Yeah.
It might not seem that way now to me, but as a kid, it seemed like you were going down a logging trail, pulling your trailer, and then you had to go up like a, big, huge incline.
Oh, wow.
Some of these places were off the beaten path. I'll say that.
Again, that's just like that was my dream growing up. Like, not gonna lie, man, I was a little city kid growing up. I'd moved out to the country ish when I was about 13 and haven't looked back since. So. Yeah,
you got time for a story here, John?
Absolutely, man. I'm always down for stories.
So this is the only time we ever went up to, I think it was Janetsville for a race. And there was a couple of different racing associations that you could race under.
Yep.
Each had its own rules, different stuff like that. I might have been 12 because I wasn't old enough to get back into the pits yet. I got in, but I wasn't quite old enough yet. But a couple guys at the end of the Saturday night had a little bit of gas they wanted to get rid of, and they tossed it on the fire. Well, I'd never seen a mushroom cloud in my life. And I'm like 12 years old, and my dad, as soon as he sees what they're doing, my dad, pulls me back away from the fire, but as far as you can.
Yeah.
Because of what they all do for a hobby, taking high horsepower trucks and chucking them across a 200-foot pond.
Yeah.
We weren't really the most sane people.
Yeah.
That's the way to put it.
Yep.
And the fire was burning away, and next thing I knew, kapoof. But they had a couple of the guys at their motorhomes, and they had a tarp in between.
Yeah.
And it blew a hole in the middle of the tarp. So that's one of the most redneck memories I got, man.
Oh, man. I'm just like imagining it right now, and that is, oh, man. At least your dad was smart enough to also pull you back away. So, like, if anything bad did happen, you were out of out of the way.
I was plenty out of the way by the time that happened. Luckily, my dad knows his friends good enough to go, okay, well, no, I see him going to do that. We're getting away here a little bit.
Well, at least like I said, at least he was able to pull you out of the way to get you out of harm's way. So.
Yeah.
But that is the most redneck thing I think I've ever heard of.
We did some crazy stuff over the years. Not so much myself, because I wasn't quite old enough to understand what was going on, but like the group of people that we went to these races with and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because most of them were 2-day events. You'd end up just pitching a tent beside your tow vehicle and camp there for the weekend.
Yeah.
And you got a whole bunch of rednecks all in one area. Turns out to be the Talladega infield, I guess.
Sounds like it. You know what? We'll on that note, we'll actually let you get going. I know right now we're recording a little bit earlier, as a lot of people know. I record about 3 weeks in advance for most episodes. So right now, Team Canada is playing Team USA, and I feel like as a nation, it is our duty to be able to watch the game and hope and cheer on Team Canada as they go for gold tonight. I want to thank Joey for coming on. Before we go, is there anyone you want to thank? Any sponsors? Anyone you want to thank?
Well, I'll start off with the people that got me into racing. My parents and my grandparents have become even more supportive than them in a way. My grandpa shows up to every race, that never misses a race, and he's getting into his 70s now.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank my parents and my grandparents for having my back and believing in me. And then my sponsors that have been with me since, day one, basically. Auto Fusion Towing's been there since day one. We got Cheapside Tire and Auto and London's Rush Check. Now, that family's been with me since day one. The fellow that owns those companies, his dad sponsored me before that. And when his dad shut down his shop, the son said, well, heck, we'll sponsor you. So it's great. I mean, they're people that I've known personally my entire life, and my dad we have a personal connection with. So I can't thank them enough because they've always been there to help us out.
That's awesome. So like I said, we're going to let you get going here. I want to thank you for coming on this week. It was a pleasure talking to you, getting to know you. Like I said, hopefully I'll get to come out and check one of your races here, as long as, fans are allowed back and all that jazz from COVID-19. So we want to wish you the best off season. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully we'll get to see you in 2021.
For sure. Thanks for having me on, John.
All right, man. Have yourself a great night now, eh?
Go Canada, go.
Go Canada, go. Bye now.
Bye.